Hello, yes. Welcome back to episode 2 of the Lil RES podcast, also known as the Rapidly Elevating Standards podcast. It is September 5th and it is hot outside. Again, it was hot like 2 weeks ago, hot like 3 weeks ago, too, I think. It's just been hot. It's just been hot. Gnocchi of the day, wherever it is on the screen, that's the gnocchi of the day. She's sitting in her little chair that she likes to sit in. It's my old office chair that she reappropriated as like her little cat tower, but it's just a chair. But she likes it, so I don't want to get rid of it. Um, and the hat of the day. The hat of the day is this Slippy hat I got from I think I got it from the Slippy Championship League, SCL, whatever it's called. Basically, over the pandemic, there was a Melee tournament series hosted by Beyond the Summit, RIP Beyond the Summit. Um, and one of the merch items you could buy is this hat. So you cannot buy this hat anymore if you want it. Sorry.
Question: Did Beyond the Summit come up before BTS came up, or no? Like, who was the first BTS?
That I'm actually not sure. I think BTS the band. Well, I think their origins are going to be around. They're going to be within like a few years of each other. I think.
Sure.
I think. I want
So
to
it's
check.
kind of a chicken. It's like a chicken and egg question. It's like, did the
Uh,
K-pop band inspire the tournament, or did the tournament inspire the K-pop band, or maybe a mix of both?
yeah. You
Sorry,
definitely
we
could.
can we can end this bit. We can end this bit. It's gone on too long.
Yeah, you could phrase it that way. You could put it that way. All right.
All right. How are you doing, Harrison?
Oh yes. How am I doing? I am doing. Huh. I'm. I am. I'm in crunch mode. I don't know if I need to crunch quite yet, but I probably kind of need to crunch for the next like 3-ish weeks. Um, I'm just now that I'm in it, seeing the gravity, experiencing the gravity of like what I need to do. That makes it sound extreme. It's not anything crazier than obligations and expectations I've had in the past, but it's like, all right, I'm spending like 2+ hours a day playing Donkey Kong, which I'm enjoying, and we'll talk about that later. I am actually really enjoying Donkey Kong, but it is a pretty flat, like 2 hour plus commitment every day. And then I need to edit the StarCraft Part 2 video every day because I need to get the sponsor deadline. Um, those two things cannot budge. And okay, the foolish part of me was assuming that I would be okay with giving up my weekends for the next 3 weeks, which I guess I haven't had to quite yet, but I think I will probably have to. And I'm not excited about that. So, something to keep in mind for the future if I'm going. Okay. If I had just not had the Donkey Kong video overlap with the StarCraft video, I think we would have been chilling. But for some reason, in my head, I was like, oh no, the Donkey Kong is like a part-time thing. It's like I'm just doing it on the side. It's only 2 hours a day, but 2 hours a day over like even 20 days is like an entire work week, right? So,
Right.
um, it is a lot. I now that I'm doing it, I'm like, all right, this is a bigger commitment than I thought. The saving grace is that I'm enjoying the Donkey Kong stuff, and I have been enjoying editing the StarCraft video, which is good because one reason I was like taking a break from it is just I was kind of tired of editing on that project. But now that I'm editing again, I'm definitely enjoying it. As much as I can enjoy editing, I guess it's just a slow process. Um, but yeah, so at least I'm not like hating the work, or it doesn't even feel that laborious. It's more just like, do I even have enough time in the day to do all of these things? I think yes, but I can't really dilly dally, right? It's like I'm in like, all right, I just gotta get it done mode. I just gotta move on mode. Um, which I realize is that is more maybe the part that makes being swamped with work. I don't even want to say swamped. It's so weird to. I guess I should be okay with saying this is a lot of work, even though it is not a lot of work to me historically, because I have burnt out in the past. So I should probably use that to retune my meter for like what is a lot of work. Even if I know that like if I push myself hard, I'm capable of more. That doesn't mean I have to do that. Um, Especially if it's not sustainable. Like I mean, okay, there are this is a tangent, and then we'll move on. But have you like met those people that constantly seem to be throwing themselves in situations that like would normally, at least to like me, like just burn me out over and over again constantly, you know what I mean? Like there's people who
Yeah.
have like recurring deadlines that require them to crunch that happen like, every 3 to 6 months where they have to like really like dig in their heels and just grind for like a month, 2 months, every like, out of pretty recurring. Like I remember at the end of college, I was like, I can't believe I've done this like 9 times or 12 times or however many times I had finals weeks because we were on a quarter system. But I was like, yeah, I definitely could not keep doing this into the future. But I feel like there are people who do things where that's like their job. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, when busy season is winter, spring, summer, and fall.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm glad that at least this is my first true busy season like since I've started. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
And I feel like it is good to like get a little bit outside of your threshold
Yeah.
just so you can, as long as you learn from it and you fine tune it for the future. It's like you're just figuring out how many story points you can take on.
Yeah, no, no, it's very true. It's like what is the term I'm looking for? Load management?
Yeah, for sure.
But not actually doing load management, more like load testing. I don't know, whatever you call it. But yeah, yeah. I mean, I think one reason well, okay, the main reason I took the sponsor is because it pays me money. But the
That is
secondary,
important.
was that?
That is important in
Yeah,
our
and yeah, yeah. I mean,
society.
there's
Yes.
nothing wrong with making money making videos. I have to. So, um, but the secondary reason I think I wanted to take a sponsor was just so that I have the experience of taking a sponsor. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, yeah, that's enough of me. I guess I didn't answer the question. How am I doing? I'm doing okay. I'm not like I wish I had more time. I wish I had more time, but I otherwise feel okay. I'm just it's hard for me to not be like kind of uh meta aware um of like how I think I'll be in the future. But I there's like these layers where it's like, okay, I feel fine now, but I'm aware I might not feel as fine later. But then my awareness of the fact that I might not be feeling fine later makes me a little worried about right now. But recognition or acknowledgement of how the future may or may not be shouldn't have bearing. I don't know. Basically, it's fine. I don't know how to put it. Like I don't know. I feel like I'm making it sound like it's not fine. You get what I'm saying. I'm fine, and if I'm not fine, it's okay that I'm not fine. All right, we'll put it like that. How are you doing, Richard?
I'm good. And audience, me and Harrison are clearly we're both on the overthinking side of
uh,
things. It's one of the reasons I feel like why we're like close friends because we're both like down to like theory craft, like
yeah,
way past the point of like correct returns, and it's just like fun. Like thinking is a
yeah,
fun exercise.
yeah.
I'm doing well. You've been on your sustainability arc. I've kind of been on my running arc.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran a half marathon this weekend and I did it in
Mm-hmm.
very hot temperatures. It was like 95 and humid. And honestly, it's been really good, but it's also I've started running in more crowded areas
Hmm.
to like make myself slightly less lazy. I'm like, if someone's looking at me, I can't stop like running as much as I should. Like, so that's been kind of funny. I can tell that like I think this is naturally like a human thing. When I first got into weightlifting, I was like very humble, and then I had like a period where like I started like losing a bit of my humility and started like ego lifting. And I can tell
Mm-hmm.
that that part is starting to potentially creep into my running. So I just need to like check myself. The nice thing is, it's like running isn't like something I define myself by. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, I kind of actively try and avoid defining myself as a runner just because I defined myself as not liking running for most of my life. So, like, it's just balancing all that out is yeah. But I'm good. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, yeah. Can you hear that?
Uh
My
huh.
phone in the background. It's okay.
Yeah, that's
It's all
that's an
right.
old ass That's an old ringtone. I haven't heard that one in a while.
Yeah. Oh, I was just curious. I was not. Yeah, yeah. It is. It's a. Is that a standard Android ringtone? I have no idea. I have no idea. But yes, thanks for sharing, Richard. I
Mm-hmm.
think we could segue off of your point to one of the agenda items, just off rip.
Let's do
Um,
it.
which is the one that just simply says the hard part. Um, I I have found historically, and I'm just certain that this is universally true across all people, just in different ways, that whenever you do something new, at some point, inevitably, nobody can tell you exactly when, but at some point, inevitably, things are going to get harder or they're going to feel harder, is the main thing, I think. Things are going to start feeling harder in some way. Um, I would say that it usually happens when you're like fresh new to something. So like you've never rock climbed before and now you're rock climbing. But I feel like this is something that actually happens in waves forever for anything that you're trying to just get better at. So when I say new, I don't necessarily mean like completely new activity or completely new skill or whatever, but just like a new thing. um
Sure.
I don't know how the hard part manifests for most people, but at least for me, I think at some point I just realize how much I don't. There's a lot of things. I think I realize how much I don't know. I realize how much I need to know or be able to do. And also I think my perception of my ability to progress kind of goes down, right? Um it's like being post newbie gains or something if you're lifting. You're like, hey, the weight is still very difficult to pick up, arguably the hardest it's ever felt for me to pick up, but the rate at which I'm picking up the weights is not nearly as fast as it used to be. Um, anyways, I bring this up because I can tell a hard part is coming. Um, for I think it's in a couple ways, but for one, I was like testing the camera the other day, and I was like using it a bit, and I know how to use most of the features on this camera. There are still a couple things I need to learn. I just haven't had the time to that are like new. But I clearly know how to use a camera, but I am kind of out of practice, and especially when it comes to like setting up shots and like doing cinematography, I realized just how little experience I have in that. Just like testing the camera, I realized that. And I was like, okay, so I'm realizing how much I need to figure things out. And I'm going to need to do a lot of cinematography for the Donkey Kong video. So the hard part is coming where I'm just not going to feel like I'm very good at something, or I'm going to feel like I'm not figuring things out, but it's happening, and I think it's gonna happen with Donkey Kong too. Playing Donkey Kong, the character, where I'm gonna start plateauing. I'm getting like my Donkey Kong newbie gains right now, and it's fun, but I'm gonna start plateauing at some point. Uh, the hard part is imminent because I'm trying to learn newer skills that I haven't practiced in the past year, and that are gonna be like the upcoming year. And I think it's good to know, it's good to anticipate a hard part because what I always tell myself, and it's always true, is that if a hard part happens, if I just persist and kind of have raw faith that I will make it through the hard part, and at the end, I will be better, I will be faster, I will be whatever. It always happens as long as I persist. And so I know the hard part is coming. So I know I just have to bunker down and keep going. And if I feel meh, I just go, okay, I feel meh. That's fair. Still got to keep going. I don't know actually now I've said all this. I don't know exactly how much that ties into your your running thing. Cuz but I think the ego thing is part of the hard part. I think part of the hard part is not necessarily that your skill actually plateaus. It's that your ego starts to increase greater than your skill is increasing, right? Because if I play Donkey Kong for a month and then after a month, I start feeling like, oh, I'm not making any progress with Donkey Kong. I don't feel great with him anymore.
Right.
I'm obviously much better than I was a month ago. Like that's just going to be true. I mean, people go through ruts and funks and whatever, but like skill skill generally stacks, especially if you're doing something recurringly. Um, but like your ego is kind of what makes the hard part feel hard. You know, if you were egoless, I feel like you would almost never experience the hard part because you just understand that getting better at something just means doing it. But
Yeah,
you cannot just
definitely.
you can't just like get rid of your ego. I don't know. Does that I wonder that what I just said, does that relate to you? Do you think
Yeah,
yeah.
I think so. I definitely think so. What you were also saying reminds me a lot of the. Do you know the Dunning Kruger effect?
Yeah, I definitely think that's part of it, right? It's
That
like
plays in for sure.
yeah, I guess Dunning-Kruger I don't think is like pitched as an ego thing, but it's basically an ego thing, right? It's like ego and skill over time.
Well, one of the axes I just pulled it up. One of the axes is confidence, and I feel
Yeah.
like confidence and ego are intertwined. If not, like you
Yeah.
couldn't. It's not like one for one, but it's heavily related.
Yeah, I think for me the difference between confidence and ego is that confidence is like what you think you can do and ego is like what you think you should do. I would
Yeah,
argue
that's a
that
good
Dunning Kruger is
distinction.
less about confidence and more about ego. But I shouldn't say that because if the chart says that, then that's what they meant. um, yeah, I think it's like Dunning Kruger. I think the difference is kind of that it doesn't happen just during the novice stage. I think I've gone through the hard part for things that I'm very, very experienced in, right? Um,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of like pushing forward and getting better at things is not linear, right? It just isn't. It kind of goes in
Can you,
waves.
in post, can you pull up a Dunning Kruger chart? Because I'm looking
Yeah.
at one right now, and it has some really funny names. Like, for example, the first bit, when you know almost nothing, but your confidence rises really quickly, when you are at the top of that, it's called the peak of Mount Stupid, quote unquote, which
is
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 honestly
that
pretty funny.
canon?
I have this. It's on Wikimedia Commons, and then
Okay,
after your peak of Mount Stupid, you fall down into Valley of Despair, which is
I
where
have
you
heard that.
realize how little you know, but all your confidence and your momentum's like shot. And
Yeah.
then it's the slope of enlightenment, which is where you start working your way up sustainably. And then the plateau of sustainability, where it starts to flatten off.
Right. Yeah, I guess at some point you can it's so interesting because I definitely believe there are a lot of people out there who are on their like mountain of sustainability or whatever where their confidence just doesn't waver and they feel like exactly as good as they can be about something like that
Right.
they do. I personally have never really experienced that with anything. Except for things that I decided I don't want to get better at. Um,
Mm.
but that's not really consistent with Dunning-Kruger because that's not a flat line. That's like a terminal point, right? Because presumably a flat line would be you do continue building skill, but your confidence stays the same. I think the true Dunning Kruger, instead of a flat line, it just turns into a sine wave at the end, right? Like a sine
Mm.
wave that's whose amplitude is not too powerful, not too big, but is still cyclical. Is how I in my head is how I think my experiences have been.
That makes sense. I think the big, and I'm looking at various different graphs, and some of them you actually start to see it like start to dip down, like where like
Uh
your knowledge deep, which like it's interesting because knowledge is on the x-axis,
yeah.
which doesn't necessarily, it's hard to like kind of think about. So if it goes down, it doesn't mean that your knowledge is decreasing, because by its nature, because it starts left to right, knowledge is
Yeah.
cumulative. It's just, I guess, like the confidence to knowledge like slope wavers a bit, which I guess
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you're saying, like a sine wave. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I wonder, I've always assumed that Dunning-Kruger is much more theory than it is a practical discovery, right? Like something that's been
Yeah.
empirically shown. But I have no idea because this wouldn't be a perfect experiment, but you could literally just like, do you know what a Likert scale is, Richard? Um,
Yes, I do. Is that the
yes.
1 to 5 or whatever, or one
Yeah.
to three?
Yeah.
It's
So
always
for
odd numbers.
yeah, yeah, for viewers who don't know, a Likert scale is just what you call a survey question where the answer can be typically it's 1 to 5. Yeah, usually you want to give an odd number because that way there's like a perfectly centered option and then some kind of like granularity in either direction. Anyways, I was just saying that for context. But yeah, you could literally, if you want to do a rough and dirty thing, you just like take years of experience for a bunch of different professions and then pull people like literally like what would you rate your knowledge, what would you rate your confidence, and then just graph it. I mean, I'm sure people have done that. They have to have done that. I wonder
Yeah.
what it looks like. It probably looks close, right? I'd have to imagine it looks close.
Wait, say your quote about models that I love.
All models are wrong.
Yes, but
Yes. Yes. I'm not going to get into that on the podcast, but I have a video on the Lil RES channel where I talk about my favorite quote. All models are wrong. Is if you're like me, if you were like me 5, 6 years ago, then that is a very helpful quote to hear. um, I'm going to move on to a new agenda item. Uh, okay. This just popped into my head the other day, but I think the TV show moral of the story that resonates the most with me or has resonated the most with me, the one that I remember better than any other moral of the story from a TV show episode ever, is there's an episode of Parks and Recreation. I think you know where I'm going with this, Rich, where um, Chris, one of the characters on the show, I think that's his name, um, he's this guy. He's dating a woman named Ann Perkins, and Ann throughout the episode is having these like various woes. And every time she talks to Chris, he's very supportive, and he tries to figure out a way to solve the problem that Ann is kind of sharing about. And he keeps doing this, but it's not making Anne any happier. Every time he like tries to like help her figure out a solution, she just kind of still feels upset. And at the very end of the episode, um, Chris is talking to Leslie Nope, the main character of the show, and she says something along the lines of like, Chris, when Anne is talking to you, she doesn't want you to solve her problems for her. She just wants to be heard, right? She just wants whatever she's saying to be like heard and validated. She's just sharing for the sake of sharing, not sharing to actually try and figure out a way to solve this problem or make this problem go away. Because sometimes people just want to share how they feel. Um, I remember seeing this live on TV as a teenager and immediately and viscerally internalizing that idea. And to this day, I will always remember that sometimes people just want to share how they feel. They just want to have their feelings validated, they just want to be heard, and that's all. Sometimes people want solutions, sometimes they don't. But it's good to know that they don't always want to. This popped in my head for a few reasons. First of all, it is really impressive to me that a TV show, a 30-minute TV episode, was able to come up with a moral of the story that resonated so hard with me. Because when you're pumping out dozens and dozens of episodes, it's really hard to have like strong takeaways from episodes. Another one that sticks in my head is there's an episode of The Office where the office has just found out that Dunder Mifflin, the company they work for, is like on the rocks, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and it's almost the same story. Not really. It's a little different. But Jim and Michael, two characters. I mean, if you know the office, you know the office. Jim and Michael are basically like co-managing the branch at that point. And Jim's response to the potential bad news is to try and like work more and get everybody like, hey, like you got to get things done. Whereas Michael just wants to play this like Savannah murder mystery game. I don't know if you've seen that episode, Rich, or if you're familiar. But so Michael just wants to play. Jim wants to work, and like when facing this scary situation, um, and near the end of the episode, like Jim's like, "Hey, Michael, can I talk to you in the office?" And they go in the office, and Jim starts to get mad at Michael, like, "Hey, why are you goofing off? Like, this is a serious situation." And Michael cuts him off, and he's like, "No, you need to listen to me. Sometimes people don't need to just get work done. Sometimes people just need to like be able to cope. Sometimes people just need to be able to get through the day. Um, like everybody's worried. Let's just get people through the day. We like it, adding more work is not going to relieve that kind of stress." And that's another episode. It's like, okay, there's like a story here. Like sometimes you don't need to get something done. Sometimes you don't need to like crank it out. Sometimes you just need to be able to like live with yourself, right? Sometimes it's the emotional side of things that needs tending, not the practical side of things. Um, I'm going on a huge tangent. I say all of this because I think people on the internet frequently forget that when people say things on the internet, most of the time, in my view, they're not trying to convince you of something. They're not trying to make some kind of argument or point. They're not trying to look for a solution. They're just trying to share how they feel, and they're hoping that that feeling will be validated and heard. And I think people forget this all the time on the internet. And so I wanted to bring it up as a reminder that a lot of the times people just want to share how they feel. All right. Sorry for talking for so long, Rich.
No, no. I was debating being like, no, people don't actually want to be sharing how they feel and like just do like a whole, but no,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. Yes, I completely agree with you. It's so, I think as someone that has been online for obviously quite a while, right?
Hmm.
But also has like I touch grass a good amount in my day to day life. Um, I get very jarred when I like will post a comment on like somewhere like YouTube or somewhere that's not like a niche subreddit
Hmm.
where like you encounter the quote unquote general internet
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I say something expecting that response and then someone like disagrees with me on something that like wasn't even the main point or like
Right.
it clearly was not there to like I wasn't even like asserting a universal experience, just mine.
Right.
And it's just like it's so jarring. It's like, what?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I see it all the time. I think a big one is like on Twitter. I know I said I'm on Twitter less. I'm on Twitter a lot less, but I still check it like a little bit. But my policy now is if I see something I don't like, I just immediately close Twitter, which happens. Okay, they got me over the weekend. I had like a 30-minute session where the For You tab was just giving me bangers. And I thought for a second, I was like, wait, did something happen? Did Twitter actually figure it out? Like they're genuinely serving me stuff I want to see. Um, like a lot of niche things in particular. It kept showing me tweets that like did not have a bunch of likes, not a bunch of replies, but like were very up my alley, and I was very impressed. And then it went away like the next day immediately. um, yeah, but like
Shit.
a lot of like people like do like quote retweet dunks and stuff where like the person they're quote retweeting was just saying like I like a thing. And their whole quote retweet dunk is like, your thing that you like is fucking stupid. What
It
you like,
sucks.
and it's like that person wasn't saying, hey, you need to like this thing, or like, hey, this is the best thing ever. They were just saying how they felt, you know? I don't know. People just seem to like, it's almost like I think people perceive the internet consistently through like their own individual lens, and it's hard for them to imagine that like what they're consuming, like reading or seeing, is somebody else's experience and not their own. And so when somebody says a feeling that another person doesn't feel, it's almost like they feel delegitimized. And so they have to delegitimize that other person's feelings. I don't know. It's this, I guess this is the bad side of the internet, right? But I don't know. I do trust the viewers. There's not a lot of you, as we found out with last episode. I don't want to be. This is not a doomer thing or anything. I think this podcast has a total of maybe around a dozen listeners, in earnest, who are gonna like reach this part of the episode. Thank you for listening, by the way. The small audience actually makes me feel like a little more comfortable, because I feel like if there's not a lot of people, it's like there's a lot fewer places where I think I need to like compulsively hedge.
Mm.
Um,
Also, you made a really good, as an aside, you made a really like enticing video, like clickbaity thing, like that licorice. Like I wasn't expecting it to like. I was just expecting like a gray image that says like Lil RES podcast or something, and I
yeah.
was like, oh wow, he actually put like some effort into the thumbnail. That's sick.
So okay, here's the problem with the Lil Res thumbnails. I do not put a lot of effort into them, but I think I'm too good at Photoshop. Oh, I'm too good where it looks like I do. But for me, I was just trying to like make a generic funny looking thumbnail. Like I don't know, cuz I don't make clickbait thumbnails on my main channel. At least I try not to. Not like in the standard way. I try and make it enticing but not in a way that's like on not on brand. It like I just try and not follow trends as much, right? Not that there's anything wrong with that. I just think it doesn't appeal to me that much. So whenever I make a thumbnail that looks very standard, very normy, in my head I'm like, haha, ironic and funny. I think to everybody who sees that thumbnail, they just see it as a normal thumbnail.
Yeah, right, right.
um, but yeah, those thumbnails do not do well, by the way. Like the last video, the thumbnail did quite poorly. The Smash celebrity one, again, I thought it was like a funny thumbnail. I'm like doing like a react face and everything. Um, that one also does quite poorly, but it's fine. Again, this channel is whatever. Um, we are like so many tangents in. I'm just gonna. I think there's multiple loose hanging threads here, but I'm gonna
All
roll
right,
up the
yeah.
stack a little bit.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Um, gosh, we're not gonna be able to get through everything. Uh, okay, we'll do hater time.
All
We'll
right.
do hater time. I don't even think I'm gonna be that much of a hater for this. Um, probably do hater time and one more thing, but huh. Okay, there is a category of YouTube video that I call MetaTube. Pretty straightforwardly because it's YouTube videos that are about YouTube, the platform. Do you hear that burp?
Oh yeah,
Nice.
that was a big one.
um, it's YouTube videos about YouTube, right? I like when creators make MetaTube videos because YouTube is my job. So it's interesting when people talk about YouTube in a meta way. Um, so for example, if like God, who's a if Adam Ragusia makes is it Ragu yeah, it's Ragusia, right?
Yep,
Um,
correct.
if Adam Ragusia, famed cooking YouTuber, excellent cooking YouTuber, um, if he makes a video on his channel talking about like, I don't know, his finances, like how he makes money on YouTube, that's a very interesting YouTube video to me, right? It's like a creator giving a behind the scenes look. And so I appreciate MetaTube videos quite a bit. And nowadays most creators create MetaTube videos. Um, sometimes often, sometimes not often. Nowadays, often on second channels. But in the last several years, I've definitely noticed a trend of people who make MetaTube videos, but all of their content is MetaTube videos, right? It's like they make videos about YouTube, but all of the videos they make about are about videos about YouTube. Like,
Right.
I think I'm being clear there, but like instead of it's like I make cooking videos and sometimes I make videos about YouTube, it's like I make videos about YouTube and I make videos about YouTube. Uh, and I think this is possible because in the past, MetaTube videos talk to a core audience and they talk to like fellow creators and maybe like people who are peripherally interested. But I feel like a lot of MetaTube videos, the thing that makes it interesting is the behind the scenes look, and that's most interesting to people who want to make YouTube videos. Um, but I think we've moved to a point where are so many people on YouTube, billions of people on YouTube nowadays, who have been on YouTube for so long and are aware of how YouTube is different from any other like entertainment platform that they just have a casual like as a viewer interest in kind of how the platform works behind the scenes because like they too are using a YouTube product when they go on the website. They're being served the algorithm, videos about how the algorithm works, why certain videos do well, etc., are going to be interesting from a viewer perspective now because there's a large enough audience for it. But something about all of your YouTube content being about YouTube rubs me the wrong way. And I think what it is that it feels like you're putting the like cart before the horse. You know what I mean? It's like how can you make interesting informed videos about YouTube the platform if you're not making videos as a standard YouTuber? And these people are making YouTube videos, so I shouldn't be so mean as to suggest that they're not making real YouTube videos. Obviously, making videos on YouTube in general, regardless of what it's about, if it's about a MetaTube video or a more standard YouTube video, is still making videos and putting them on the platform and having the experience. But it's still, I don't know. It's almost like a little too incestuous. It just gives me weird vibes. I don't know if you see these videos at all, Richard, actually, because maybe I see these videos because I'm a YouTube creator. But yeah.
Yeah, I think this must miss my algorithm, but I guess that does make sense. It reminds me, it's kind of giving me energy of people that like write a book on how to make like $1 million, and it's the book that makes them the $1 million or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. And it's like, you weren't wrong. You certainly weren't wrong. But like, yeah, I don't know. And not all of these videos are about how to get more views. They're not always about becoming more successful or even about giving advice. Sometimes they're just analyzing some trend or whatever. But I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. There's just something about it that gives me an off vibe that I don't like. I guess I just want people to be a little bit more well-rounded, you know? If you make videos about YouTube as your YouTube video content, I feel like you're never going to it's like the image of like the snake eating its own tail, right? You're going to kind of
Mm,
like just always stay in the same thing. Like something I like about YouTube for me is that I'm given the opportunity to branch out in so many different ways. I think me a lot more than other creators, but I think this applies to the vast majority of creators. Um, maybe I'm just perturbed by the idea of people denying themselves from potentially having that experience. I don't know. Um, we'll talk about one last agenda item, and then I think we'll wrap. Sounds good.
yeah, sounds great.
All right. Um,
Can
so
I
many
choose, or
options.
do you want to choose the last one?
What sounds interesting to you? I might not go with your suggestion, but what sounds interesting to you?
I mean, the I be doing social comparison sounds very intriguing to
All
me.
right, we'll do I be doing social comparison.
Thank
So
you.
social comparison, I believe that's the term, is an idea I learned about when I was studying learning, not because I studied social comparison, but because somebody I knew studied social comparison. And that's basically the term, if I'm remembering it correctly, for when students kind of judge themselves against each other. They compare themselves against each other. In the context of learning, it's often like, oh, like X person in my class is so much better at like math than I am or whatever. And in general, the conclusion is that social comparison is bad. It does not really ever serve students. It kind of gives you arbitrary ways that you can be a failure. Right? Um you're just drawing lines where because of like negativity and bias and stuff, you're often like putting yourself short compared to a more honest or fair or like other way to measure yourself. And I realized the other day I was like watching some YouTube videos and I was like, wait a second, I'm doing social comparison right now. I need to cut that out. That's not good for my learning orientation. It's not good for my emotional health. And the thing is it's not insidious, I feel, the way it was coming up. It's just something very passive. Like, to give an example, I watched a video from this YouTuber named Elliot is a cool guy. He's like a graphic design slash comedy YouTuber. Um, and obviously he's a graphic designer, so the graphic design in his videos is excellent, right? The graphic design looks amazing. Um, And I was like watching that video, and then afterwards, I had the thought where I was like, man, I can't do that. I can't I can't make my videos look as like visually, graphically as pleasing as Elliot can. Or I think I've been doing this subtly for a lot of YouTube videos. I watch a YouTube video and then I really key into the parts of the video that I can't do that the person who made the video can do. Um, but the thing is that this is a very unfair comparison for me to make because while I can't do certain things, if Elliot were in my shoes, he would not be able to do a lot of things that I can do, right? Like he made a video where he like modeled himself, a little like clone of himself in Blender. Um and then like he wanted it to be able to talk and stuff, so he had to like figure out code to make it work with Unity and whatnot. And in the video at least, it seems like he really struggled with like the implementing the code part. I don't even think he had to write any code. He just needed to run it. But for me, something like that is totally trivial because I have a computer science degree. You know, if I need to write code for a project, which I have several times in the past, I can do that without hesitation and I can do it a lot more efficiently than the average person can do it. Um, and that's because we all allocate our time in different places, you know? I just I just needed to remind myself like, hey, it's normal and fine that you can't do something that another person can do because you're not going to be able to do everything. If you look for the one thing that they're better than you at or the one thing that you think you might never ever attain at their level, you will forever be miserable because there will always be something, you know? And if there isn't something, you're probably looking at the wrong people for inspiration. Um, so yeah, reminder myself, I be doing social comparison, the natural thing, everybody does it, but I'll try and catch myself if I'm doing it. Um, maybe like reframing it as like I can't do this, and more as like look at what happens if I go down this route. Is that something that I'm interested in going down or not?
Mm.
Because I only have finite time. Ah, I want to do everything, Richard. I want to do absolutely everything. Um, but I can't. I don't have the time to, and I don't even have the will to. So we'll see. But
But the
we,
idea of it sounds really fun.
I know, right? That's why I think so there's like the childhood fantasy of like freezing time and then doing, you know, all kinds of things ranging from ungodly to mild.
Yep, yep, yep.
um I think for me the freezing time fantasy has always appealed because I think of it as like ooh, unlimited time to practice and hone any skill I want, and an unlimited number of skills, right? Like in Groundhog Day, the part of the Groundhog loop that most fascinated me or like sticked in my head the most was the fact that he was able to like become like a master ice sculptor, become a master like pianist in what in real lifetime is only one day, and being like, oh, I wish I could just work on skills forever. uh,
It's like the perfect mid maxing because
yeah,
you have no consequences. You can just keep resetting.
right,
It's
right.
crazy.
Yeah, I truly have min max brain worms for better and for worse. But yeah,
Awesome.
that's the last agenda item. Is there anything you wanted to say before we close, Rich?
Mm, no, I think I'm good. I think you covered everything.
All right, great. Well, listener, viewer, whoever you are, thanks for listening to the Lil RES podcast. Goodbye, no. And I'm just going to keep saying this at the end of every podcast. Whoever you are, wherever you are out there, whatever you're doing great. And you'll be fine. And as always, I do truly, sincerely believe that. So keep on keeping on. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye.